how do y'all, must be Southern, find deals off market? I'm going to take this and say how we do it, and then I'm also going to say how the ideal way to do it is, because we, we're not 100%, gung-ho off market. We definitely know how to do it, and we're not the best doing it. But for off market deals, first, it really depends on what space you're in. But off market, the best ways are direct mail. Over here. Direct mail, cold call, drive for dollars, knock on doors, broker or agent relationships. That's 5. I'll do that way. Other professional relationships, so mortgage brokers, accountants, property managers, things of that nature. Trying to think what else. Those are really, I may come up with some others, but those are the biggest ones right now. And it's really just leveraging all those different resources. The easiest one to start off with is broker or agent relationships. You just got to form a relationship over time and have a proven track record and a proven way to close. The easiest way to get an off-market deal sent to you first, right? If you want to be that first call, there's 2 things you can do. Is 1, do what you say you're going to do all the time, consistently, follow up, and close on a deal. Especially the trickier deals or the deals that have some weird component to it. You're going to get a deal sent first. The deal we're closing in Columbus is very tricky. The financials are a mess. We weren't able to get into all the units, and the seller is kind of giving us a hard time getting through it all. But because we've now gone hard and we're about to get the money raised, and we'll close because we've done 3,200 units already. It's not going to be a problem. We had a broker call us and say, hey, you guys are taking this down. That's super impressive. I promise you are literally the first call for this deal. We ended up passing on it just because it was right around the corner, and we felt it was overexposure to that specific submarket, and we'd prefer to be a little bit diverse within markets. But it's just an example of how that works. So that's broker-agent relationships. The second part of that is niche down into what you want. Have a criteria. Don't just call somebody and say, hey, I want to buy multifamily in Ohio or in Columbus, right? When I call somebody, I tell them, we're looking for, 70, 80, but really 100 units plus, up to 300 is kind of our sweet spot, I'll say, but we can go more. We're looking for B and C class assets, 1960s to 1980s built, and really looking for a story behind those properties. We don't want a deal that was bought 3 years ago. They did some exterior work or blew out the exterior and only did 10% of units. We like long-term owners, operational inefficiencies. I have a criteria that I can continue to repeat, and when they hear the same thing and they see we're closing deals, whether it's in their market or in another market, they start to understand that if this deal crosses their desk, we're the group to call, or we're one of the groups to call. If you say, hey, I want to buy multifamily in Columbus, Ohio, and they're just going to shoot you whatever they have. It could be a 90-unit high-rise in downtown Columbus. We are never going to buy that. And if you don't specify what you want to buy, they don't know what to send you. And if they start sending you stuff and you're not buying, they're just going to be like, all right, these guys, they can fuck off. So that's brokers. In terms of like true off-market, download a list, send a direct mail, and send that person 7 mailers over, every 2 weeks, every month. Don't just send one and stop. The calls you get on the first direct mail, I would say almost 100% of them are going to be non-starters. The reason being, they probably get a ton of mailers and they're trying to find the sucker that'll overpay for it. Maybe you just happen to catch the person at the right time. They've gotten 10 mailers and they've been thinking about selling, and they had an agent sell, and then they get your postcard and they're like, all right, let's give this guy a call, see what he'll offer. More often than not, they've gotten a bunch. They know what their property's worth, and they're just trying to find somebody that will pay more than what it's worth. But if you send it multiple times and they see you following up and you do it slightly different, and maybe you handwrite one, and maybe you send one that's yellow or red, or one's really big or one's really small, like, I don't know, just mix it up. It's time, and it's just catching that person at the right time. It's the same exact thing with cold calling. They're two very similar things. If you cold call someone out of the blue, the first conversation, if they're like, yeah, I'd love to sell you my property, I'm super, super skeptical. Unless they're like a more sophisticated owner and it's just, they have been thinking about selling for a little while, and instead of going through a broker, you just call them on the right day. It's going to take you a couple points of contact before, you really get a good deal. We've been doing a ton of direct mail and cold calls for mobile home parks for about 7 months, and we've bought 2 tiny parks, and those, I don't even know if they really count. It was kind of before we really started. We've got a ton of contracts and offers out right now, so it's started to pick up in the last, 15 to 45 days, but it took months and time and we've got a couple people in the office that are really running this, and they're in here, 3 to 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, doing this stuff day after day after day, and really putting in the time and effort and the follow-up. So, yes, you have to consistently follow up with these people to try and get an off-market deal. In terms of other relationships, as you're dealing with other professional relationships, property managers, mortgage brokers, insurance guys, just ask and say, hey, next time you talk to some of your other clients, your other groups, just ask if they have a deal that they're thinking about selling, and if you think it would be a good fit for us, if you wouldn't mind putting us in touch or playing an intermediary, and then compensate that person for doing it, because if you do, they're going to appreciate that, as well as they'll bring it to you, and if it ever comes up again, they know they can come to you to get paid. But as far as off-market deals, those are the ones we do. A really cool tactic that I like, especially for the bigger stuff, or I guess you could do it for the smaller stuff too, is if there's a deal that gets listed and you like that area, call the 10, 20, 30, 50 properties right around it and try and get in touch with that owner, and then try and get it for a little bit cheaper if you can, or a lot cheaper if you can, because then you've got a really good barometer of where the market is right there, and what the current market is. And, you can kind of play off of that to find other properties. So as you're digging in for that one that's listed, maybe you like it, maybe you don't, a little bit irrelevant, but you're going to start knowing about that immediate area. If you know it really well and you've already been cold calling, maybe use it as a point of, hey, this deal is selling, you can save this amount of money. So, I can afford, I can pay you X, you can get a deal for a little bit cheaper. You can say, well, I think, it's really, they're asking $325, it's really worth $300, but if you don't have the closing costs with an agent, if I give you $275, you'll net the same. Now you get a property for $50,000 cheaper. They get the same as what you think it's worth or what it'll trade for. And everybody is happy. Or maybe you give them $285 and you split the difference, whatever. There's all different strategies, but really cool or really interesting strategy, I think. Deal gets listed, call the 20 properties, 5 properties, 50 properties around it. Depends upon what asset and market you're in. But yeah, those are kind of the ways that we find off-market properties, or you can find off-market properties, and some of the ways that you should go about doing it.